So I'm going to show you a demonstration with Morph. We're going to walk through a tutorial and let's get started. So we go to morph.graphics to access the tool, and right in the browser we just click Getting Started. There's also the GitHub page and a few sample videos on there you can check out. So we're going to click Getting Started. That opens the tool right in our browser and we can dive right in. Morph was designed to be fast and easy to use for a non-coder to or anyone to really use the tool to quickly experiment in creating generative art. So it works immediately in the browser. There's no software or anything like that to download. So here we are in the application. Step 1, upload your data or use one of the sample data sets. So we're creating, data-driven abstract art. We're going to experiment with playing with colors, shapes, sizes of that chart type, and ultimately creating something really abstract out the other end. So we can again upload our data set, which shows you the spreadsheet file format and the limitations in terms of numbers of rows of data and the maximum file size of 2 megabytes. And in this example, I'm going to show you a sample data set. So let's start there. So let's start with step 1, and we're going to select a sample data set and generate art from data using Morph. So open, select sample, and let's pick largest cities in the world. Also, we can click on the data set as well to see the source at any point in any of these sample data sets, and that will take you to the data source online. So we'll pick largest cities in the world. So you can see we have city, nation, population. It is previewing our data right in the dashboard. So this was built into the tool, and of course if you are uploading your spreadsheet, just double check that your formatting is correct and it's in a readable format in terms of those columns and rows. So here we have 3 columns. We also have 238 rows. You can also kind of cycle through and preview your data. And then the next step is to design. So we can pick any one of these chart types. We've got 6 chart types to choose from here. So let's pick this scatter plot. And once we get to this step, we can start to map the fields from our data set, from that data source, and it will create a preview chart, and that's what we're going to start to use to create our generative abstract art from Morph. So I can actually fill this randomly. The kind of tool will populate each of these fields for me. You can see the yellow sections are what are required to get a preview of your chart type using this data source. So I'll just click Fill Random and show you how that works. So it's taken nation in my area section. In the X position for this particular scatter plot chart type, it's chosen population. And I can also kind of go in and select a completely other column if I'd like. In this case, the Y position, I'm choosing city. Again, I can clear that, or I can even click Fill Random again, and it's going to continue to kind of change the data source in each of these fields. So we'll go back in. I'll choose city for that X position, population for Y, and I kind of get this fun, almost like bubbles or cloud type of image that I'm liking. So it's really based on, that kind of beauty in the eye of the beholder. What's your preference? And this is really the fun part of using Morph, is kind of, what's seemingly unexpected designs and images that are generated through the tool that might also guide you in creating something along an animation or a visual that you might not have otherwise thought to create using something like a traditional data visualization tool for a chart or graph. So it is really designed to kind of be playful and experimental. So So our next step, once we've selected and kind of organized our chart from the preview here, we're going to select Evolve, and it takes that preview and gives us the base to our tree. So what happens here is each time we click on this image, it's going to generate nodes or leaves and start to create a generative tree, kind of inspired by the tree of evolution or tree of life. So let's click on this first image and let the algorithm do its work. And here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 leaves or nodes generated from our one visual design here. So I can see that in this one, clearly one of them is standing out. It's a little bit more saturated and brighter. I'm going to choose that one. And now I'm getting this kind of like rainbow effect, something a little bit more of a pastel palette, something more kind of neon and funky. So I can go in either direction. That's really the fun part about this evolution tree is the random aspect. The fact that the computer generated algorithm is mutating all of these variables into unique, one-of-kind charts and images. So ultimately we can kind of continue to play with each of these individual leaves and nodes and generating and mutating them kind of infinitely. We can also click on this random button, which will allow the again, the algorithm to decide what to choose. So we are continuing to kind of generate through this random feature built into the tool. And once you're kind of at a place where you found a lot of designs and experiments, you can click export, or excuse me, editor. So we'll click editor and we'll just select like one of these beautiful images here. Let's pick this little cloud image. And in here, I can modify my leaf. I can choose from modifying color, area, X, Y position. So the modifications will be unique based on the chart type. So back in your design step, depending on what kind of design you do choose, what kind of chart type you choose, the functions for editing the visual will change each time. So be sure to experiment with different chart types. So here I can change kind of hue and offset. I can also look at saturation, kind of make this really neon, playing with the offset a little bit. Here changes the size of these lovely shapes, and then X and Y position, right? So I can start to kind of manipulate and play with that, or the rank factor of this scatter plot. And then built in with each feature in terms of modifying the individual leaf or node is also this random factor. So you see that's a theme throughout the Morph tool, is the ability to have kind of random computer generation of visuals to provide the most interesting array or sequence of images and mutations that may be possible that the algorithm is ultimately kind of processing underneath. And then also you have here the Y position, so I can play further with that offset. And once I'm kind of happy with the new image that I've created, the new design, I can click Save, and this is going to bring that back into the tree, my design tree, if you will. And I can also, if I don't like this, just click Reset, start over again. And that's another kind of fun part with Morph, like a sketch pad. You just can tear out the papers or erase and start over again. So let's save this one, and we will go bring this one back into the tree. In this case, it's just saving it, and there it is. So I'm going to click on that one because I can actually take that mutation, take that generated leaf, and then further mutate that to again create kind of different directions. So once I'm kind of happy with my evolution tree here, then I'm going to either clear the tree if I want to start over again. I'll show you what that looks like. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to hit cancel. Or I can reset a particular leaf. In this case, it will show up with the most recent kind of node that you've selected here. So let's reset leaf. And actually, if I zoom out, you'll see the other nodes here in each of these branches, these kind of children throughout the tree are highlighted. So these are the leaves that I can reset. I can go back in time and zoom out. Okay. So let's export one of these leaves. So what's going to happen is if I want to have a still image, I can have the option of exporting that or an animation. So once I click export, I can choose any one of these leaves or nodes in my generative tree. And again, it will be available as either an image or animation. It defaults here in the program at this stage on an image. So we have our largest cities in the world. The title is retained. We can remove that. If I wanted to kind of customize the title, I could do so here. If I did have labels assigned in my design step, labels would also show up in this field. Now we can also, as well, if we have labels here, export an HTML vector interactive. So you could open that up, you could embed that. That could be kind of its standalone interactive file format where I could hover over each of these shapes to show the label or value. And then looking at animation, what happens in this step is Morph retains every step that you've taken, every click of every chart type, and if you've edited each of those nodes in the sequence, it will retain all of that in your design tree. So by clicking on animation, it is creating that kind of sequence from your evolution tree from start to finish of your selected chart in the editor function and export function. So here it's animating all of those steps, creating a kind of really beautiful graphic from our original cloud and bubble design to something kind of colorful and animated here. And then I can also kind of speed up or slow down the animation. So if I want to make that super fast or super slow, I can just use the duration feature. If I also want to kind of change the frame rate, I can do that in here as well. It defaults to 30. And resolution, again, so this can have, really high quality resolution and output, which is really fantastic. And then there's the animated GIF export. There's also the WebM video for sharing in like Chrome and animated video sequences, and then the PNG frame sequence download as well. So if I wanted to just take, for example, a still image, save as PNG, that will export right there. If I want to share on social media, I have the option of sharing this image, and or if I wanted to share the animation through Twitter and Facebook, I could also email this to a friend or colleague. And we do all that, by kind of cataloging that through Imager, which you can copy and paste as well. So those are the functions of kind of your file export. And you can further customize your animation. If you want to go back into your tree, you can just kind of hit that back button. You can also go into each of the steps of Morph at any point in time. So for example, down here where you see this kind of wiki wizard of your steps 1 through 5, I could go back into my tree. In this case, let's just be bold and we'll clear our tree and start over, and that will give me that new graph. a visual chart preview to start over. I can also go back into, again, my data. So I can start from the very beginning in the application and select a new sample data set or upload my own. I could also, once I select that, again, change the design, use one of the different chart types, experiment with different chart types and different visuals. So as you see here with this new data set with my, iris data, here I have sepal length, time, group, radius, all coming from this particular data set. Let's review that here from these columns. And this one has about 150 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns here. These are kind of the class of these different species. And then let's kind of organize that, right? So we can, again, fill random to create something completely random in just the chart preview, and evolving, kind of going through our steps again of creating a generative image or animation, and all of the properties are retained in each of these generative images. So again, when I click export, or excuse me, when I click editor and go into each one of these leaves for whatever type of chart type that it's built into, that I've selected, that's built into the tool, it will retain that for the editor feature. So the X, Y position, the scale, rotation, these can all be manipulated, the offset, the rank factor. So you can really customize and play with these features and the sliders and kind of, manipulating your artwork. So this is a really great place to play within the tool and get some ideas for designs and shapes, and then play with these random factors within each of these, and saving that back into the tree and continuing to generate the visual. Let's see what happens when we turn on the animation for this. So we've got this really funky kind of visual from our still image. It almost has like this counterclockwork animation. It's a really funky, abstract, crazy kind of visual, and it does have some kind of depth and dimension. So I really like this. So I'm going to save this animation, and let's see, save animated GIF. And then it's exporting. So I'll have that saved on my computer. And then I can also share it within Morph. I can use the social media sharing feature. I can embed that in another website if I'd like, or again, use it to share on the cover of a report. And that's really the whole tool in a nutshell. From these very simple steps, you can create your own generative art from scratch in just a matter of minutes. So we look forward to seeing what you make with Morph.